Hi, my name is Ina Yermolov, and I will be presenting on the topic of coaching and disciplining staff for both the nurse manager and also RNs in other settings and roles. So let's get started. Okay, so in order to really understand both what coaching and disciplining staff is, we need to first look at what they are separately, basically understanding the definition of what coaching staff means and what disciplining staff means. So, coaching staff is a day to day process to help employees improve their performance and is an important tool for effective nurse managers. However, coaching is perhaps one of those tasks that is most difficult for management and therefore is overlooked and not done. With even the shortest of interactions, coaching involves needs analysis, staff development, interviewing, decision making, problem solving, analytical thinking, active listening, motivation, mentoring, and communication skills. So, what to take away though is that the main goal of coaching is to eliminate or improve performance problems, but not many nurse managers are ready to coach and often don't want to confront other employees' problems, which makes the process ineffective. On the other side, there's disciplining staff, which is really a dreaded process for most managers most of the time. However, penalties should be progressive, which really just means that there's verbal warning, written warning, suspension, and then discharge. Also, discipline needs to be taken when rules are violated, and if the employee doesn't respond to the disciplinary action, the manager needs to take the choice and make the choice to terminate the employee. But throughout a disciplinary situation, close contact needs to be maintained with HR and administration. Okay, so moving on, we will now just be covering material about coaching staff and disciplining staff. First, as we said in the previous slide, coaching staff means to eliminate or improve performance problems. Therefore, the way to do that is to very simply coach when the problem initially presents itself. This saves lots of time and prevents bad morale from developing, but also makes it easier to avoid difficult decisions such as discipline or even termination later on. Therefore, the way to maintain and sustain effective coaching is by the development of mutual trust and positive regard to both the manager and the employee or nurse. This trust is developed by the manager seeing the nurse as not just an employee but an individual with unique attributes, values, knowledge, and skills that can grow. I like the way that the Journal of Advanced Nursing explained the attributes of effective managerial coaching. They describe these facilitating attributes as having the ability to develop an interpersonal relationship of mutual trust and respect, setting clear expectations for performance, providing and soliciting feedback, and setting goals and providing training and resources. This is why timely coaching with these attributes can help retain staff and reduce the turnover rates. Coaching is proving to be extremely beneficial to individuals and organizations in terms of increasing productivity and other factors such as safeguarding patients, improving clinical care, increasing the number of confident, assertive nurses, as well as more effective managers. I have the question to the left there of what can coaching improve? Well, in the British Journal of Nursing, it said that it can support nurses' learning and development with benefits to individuals, organizations, and coaches themselves. Also, just in general, coaching has shown to decrease the amount of incorrect flow sheet documentation, decrease the amount of days missed of work, and improve those frequent personal phone calls or excessive texting that is done by some nurses. So, really, it can improve a lot. But before coaching can even happen, before the nurse manager slash coach interacts with the employee, they need to prepare and try to anticipate what the reaction of the nurse will be so that they can be ready when the appropriate time comes and with the appropriate and right response. But this interaction between the nurse and manager should only be about 5 to 10 minutes, no longer, really. Okay, so in this next slide, I will be going over what the steps are in order for successful coaching to take place. These steps include stating the targeted performance in behavioral terms, which means that the manager would tell the employee, for example, for the past week, the falls risk assessment portion of your flow sheet has been incomplete or missed completely. Step 2 would be to tie that problem to the consequences for the patient, the functioning of the organization, or the person's personal self interest. An example of this would be something like the manager stating, "It is difficult for other nurses to know the status change is in your patient's mobility, therefore may not assist the patient to the bathroom when they actually need, for example, a one assist from a status change of independent." The third step is that after having stated the problem behavior, the manager should avoid jumping to conclusions, but rather uncover the reason why there is this particular problem with that nurse. This would involve the manager listening openly to the nurse as they describe the problem. And then the coach slash manager can determine if the problem is caused by ignorance or maybe unfamiliarity or another reason. Then, in this step, the manager would simply inform the nurse of what appropriate behavior is and then end the coaching session. Now, step 4 includes asking the employee for his or her suggestions and discussing ideas for how to solve the problem, which is kind of self explanatory. Um, and then step 5 just gives the question of how formal should the session be. Well, this would basically be determined by the severity of the problem and whether it's a recurrent problem or just a one time event. The last step in successful coaching is arranging for a follow up meeting, which gives the employee performance feedback, which can help improve future problems. I just wanted to point out that, as it's stated in the Journal of Nursing Management, to be an effective coach, emphasis needs to be put on local context. So, building relationships, offering help in the daily work, providing and improving care, and providing technical help as needed. This is everything that needs to happen within those 6 steps that I went over for everyone in the coaching session, which are both the coach and employee, to get the most out of the experience. So this slide is the last one that I am going to talk about on coaching, and it's about positive coaching. So positive coaching uses coaching not only to improve problem performance, but also as a tool to reinforce positive behavior and a tool for leadership development. It has helped leaders become more confident and competent, as well as improve their team's functioning. Then there's leadership coaching, which can be undertaken as one-to-one interactions with a coach or a group. This type of coaching has a purpose of helping participants become more self-aware, accountable, and just attain their professional goals. So this wraps up coaching. So now I'll be moving on to disciplining staff. Okay, so when it comes to disciplining staff, managers generally dread this, but there will always be occasions when discipline is necessary. However, managers might hesitate to discipline maybe because of lack of management support or training, because they let past inappropriate behaviors go by unmentioned. Maybe they're rationalizing to avoid that discipline. Or they had previous poor experiences with discipline, or they have fear of what the negative reaction or response from the employee will be. With all of this said, learning how to properly discipline can reduce these concerns for the manager, especially once they realize that discipline is to teach new skills and encourage appropriate behavior, not to punish. So, what are some guidelines for disciplining to be effective? Well, to start, first, the manager needs to have all the facts before they act and confront the nurse. Then they need to make sure that they are not acting out of anger or just suddenly out of the blue or tightening up rules. Also, some other guidelines are to apply penalties consistently, discipline in private, make the offense clear, get all sides of the story, not make the discipline become personal. And finally, the last 2 steps are to not back down when they know they are right. And very importantly, inform HR and administration of the outcome and any important details of the encounter. The reason close contact needs to be maintained with HR and administration is because before any disciplinary action is taken by the manager, that action and intent need to be discussed in order to seek approval so that there is a guarantee that any disciplinary action that needs to be taken is in a fair and legally defensible manner. The way to really ensure fairness to the employee is to make sure that the rules and regulations were clearly communicated to them. which includes progressive penalties, and also the manager needs to give for the employee an appeals process to be available to them. Okay, so before we get any further, it's very important to understand that in order for a manager to enforce rules and regulations, the employee needs to know them ahead of time and preferably in writing, which takes us back to the last slide of the guidelines. Because how can a manager expect an employee to act and perform a certain way if the employee doesn't even know what the rules for that area are? But if the employee knew and was still acting inappropriately, then progressive discipline needs to be taken by the manager. Progressive discipline really is just a process of increasing warning by severity to an end result if the employee still doesn't change, termination. Okay, so unfortunately, not all staff respond to discipline or even progressive discipline or coaching. So the nurse manager would need to face the process of terminating a nurse. Now, first, I want to say that the picture is not the ideal way to terminate, and I will get into that here in a bit. So, in order to terminate a staff member or a nurse, it's the manager's role to inform HR and administration, then tell the employee the offending behavior that they were doing and the reason they are being terminated while explaining the whole process of termination. But it is important for the manager to remain calm and not get heated because that can escalate the situation and conversation. Also, in order to ensure that the hospital or whichever organization that the nurse is working for is not put at risk, the terminated employee needs to be escorted out by security, and then the manager can report back to HR and administration. But before this whole process takes place, the nurse manager needs to ensure that expectations were clearly set from the beginning, which means that they knew the policies, procedures, performance appraisal criteria, and all in writing preferably. Also, the manager needs to have a lot of documentation of the nurse's unacceptable behavior, also it being addressed, and that the employee knew and was confronted about it. And did the manager complete a coaching session with the employee? This is important because although it might be stressful for the manager, it can allow the manager to intervene earlier with the employee's problems and follow up as necessary to prevent it from even escalating to termination. So the following 2 slides are going to be some videos on coaching and disciplining staff, and it will be a good way for all the visual learners to get a better understanding of both topics. If the links don't work for some reason, I will include them.
I try to acknowledge her point of view, but the team needs to focus on solutions.
What could happen if you didn't do anything?
You mean just let her...
Coaching is a conversation, many conversations that move a person forward. Coaching conversations involve active, engaged listening.
You really shifted into high gear just now. I hear conviction behind what you're saying.
You do? I guess this matters more to me than I thought.
Active listening by the coach can shine a light. Without interruption, the person doing the talking can hear herself for the first time. This can offer entirely new insights. Coaching conversations also involve powerful questions.
Tell me, Dave, what could happen if you do nothing?
Could you repeat that?
I asked, what could happen if you do nothing?
I hadn't considered that. I suppose if I did nothing, Roger might take some initiative, which is exactly what he needs to do on this project.
The right question in the right context can trigger new thinking about how to approach a problem. Besides listening and questioning, coaching conversations can also involve suggestions. Suggestions are just that, not direct orders, but ideas to consider.
So, Lori, have you ever considered hitting the pause button when that happens?
I do tend to dive right into things, don't I? Maybe it wouldn't hurt to take a wait-and-see position.
Even if Lori doesn't follow her manager's suggestion, exploring it may trigger insights that will help her meet her objectives in some other way. So for the manager, what's the point of all this listening and asking and suggesting? The key point. Managers who use coaching skills help their people think more deeply, so they can tap their own inner resources to take action and meet a challenge. Coaching in the workplace works. It's being proven every day.
How do you know?
Here are a few interesting facts. A survey of Fortune 100 execs found that coaching's return on investment was 6 times its cost. Another survey found that coaching, as a follow-up to training, increased productivity 88%, 4 times higher than with training alone. And there's more research showing similar results.
I'm impressed.
For managers, coaching is powerful stuff that goes to the heart of being a leader.
How to discipline an employee. Hello and welcome to VideoJug. When employees aren't performing to the standards expected or are allowing a poor attitude to get the better of them, they can affect the morale and productivity of your whole team. As their manager, you need to take decisive action before the situation worsens. We've spoken to Mark Williams of mtd.co.uk to show you how to discipline an employee for maximum impact. Step 1. Why discipline? Discipline is intended to improve performance, deal with unhelpful attitudes, or correct damaging behavior. The idea is to give the employee opportunity to turn their performance around before suspension or dismissal is even mentioned. It's not the same as punishment. The perfect manager is more like a kindly shepherd than an evil dictator. Step 2. Be specific. Make it clear to your employee exactly what you're disciplining them about. Statements like, "You need to improve your attitude," are extremely unhelpful. Generic statements will only put them on the defensive. Relate unacceptable behavior to specific standards that have been broken.
You've been late every day this week. This isn't acceptable.
Step 3. Put it in context. Explain to the employee how their behavior is impacting on the company or department.
Because of your lateness, Dave is having to pick up your slack. It is affecting our output.
The employee needs to know why this is an issue to you or the department. The context will help them to determine the importance of the matter. Step 4. Specify changes. Tell the employee what you expect them to change about their behavior.
I need you at your desk by 9 o'clock, ready to work.
Be as specific as you can so they don't see this as a personal attack on them. It's simply a change that you would ask anybody to carry out. Step 5. Explain consequences. As this is a verbal warning, outline the consequences if their behavior doesn't change.
Derek, this is a verbal warning. If this continues, I'm going to have to request a disciplinary.
Ensuring they understand the results of not changing makes them feel more responsible for it. Step 6. Provide support. Finish on a positive and express your support for their efforts to change.
Having said all of that, I want to avoid going down that route. You are a valued member of this team, and I know you can change. Okay.
By doing this, they accept responsibility and start thinking positively about the changes rather than being defensive. Step 7. Disciplining your friends. Be consistent. You spend a significant amount of your life at work, so it's natural that you're going to make friends with some of your workmates. Unfortunately, you're still their boss, and when it comes to discipline, you need to be consistent. It'll do team morale no good if you overlook unacceptable behavior in one person, but discipline others. Be impersonal. As with all disciplinary action, your treatment of the situation should be impersonal. Let them know that you're happy with their work, and that by introducing this change, you can see only positive results in the future. This way, you aren't making this a personal issue, but one where everyone wins. Done.
Okay, so this slide is basically just going to function as a wrap-up of the information that was throughout the PowerPoint. So what we learned about coaching is that it's a day-to-day process of helping employees improve their performance or eliminate a performance problem, as well as reinforce positive behaviors. With disciplining staff, what was learned is that when rules are violated, disciplinary action needs to be taken, but penalties should be in a progressive manner. Also, if staff does not respond to the discipline, it's the manager's responsibility to take charge and terminate that employment. Okay, so these are my references. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, took away a few key points. Thanks for watching.